So today is March 28th, and it's been a couple of months since we recorded this podcast with Andy. Since then, the world has been literally turned upside down by a virus, and Andy asked us to record a little bit of an intro on our current situation. So I wanted to take you all the way behind the scenes of this podcast. So now Ryan and I are going to take the microphone and we're going to record a little message.
Test. 1, 2.
We're on?
Test. We're on. We have, we're Ryan and Sophie. I'm Ryan.
I'm Sophie.
And we have taken over the On the Wind podcast.
Yes.
No longer by Andy Schell.
Yes.
Hosted by Ryan and Sophie. Hi, Jack.
So welcome to On the Wind with Ryan and Sophie.
We recorded the upcoming podcast with Andy a couple of months ago when we were in La Sance in Guadeloupe.
And since then, the world has been turned upside down.
Absolutely. So Sophie and I are holed up here in the lagoon in St. Martin, where we are under lockdown.
Mm-hmm. Why is that?
Because of the coronavirus. That is why.
Mm-hmm. We ended up in St. Martin. It was a very random place. We just needed to be here to fly back to Sweden a few weeks ago. And when we came back, everything turned really somber.
That's right. So we actually consider ourselves fortunate to be here because the island is very well stocked with food and we're in a very secure but not very pretty anchorage.
St. Martin is half Dutch, half French, so it's heavily subsidized by Europe. So the supermarkets are extremely well stocked. There is very good infrastructure and there is an extremely tough lockdown. Do you want to tell a little more about the lockdown?
Yeah, we essentially can go to the grocery store and do things that would be considered essential, but on the French side at least, we need to have a little declaration saying who we are, where we live, and what we're out doing.
It's called a declaration, a certificate of derogatory movement.
That's right. Leave it to the French to make this whole thing bureaucratic.
Of course.
But so we're safe, but we don't know what our plans are now for the upcoming summer,
season.
Even next season. So it's very much in the wind.
Mm-hmm. Saying that we're going stir crazy in our 40-foot boat is a wild understatement.
Yeah, that's right. But we're staying sane, and we hope you guys can stay a little more sane by listening to this next podcast.
All right, this is On the Wind with Ryan and Sophie. I feel we need a jingle.
Now off to you, Andy.
We miss you, Andy.
I think that one's good.
Oh, Andy Schell, you don't know what's coming at you. All right, let's do this. See you soon, guys. Hey guys, today we are anchored in Les Saintes, which is a small archipelago south of Guadeloupe. It's a French island, and right by our boat we have Ice Bear, which is Andy and Mia's boat, our friends. Andy and Mia also happen to have the biggest sailing podcast in the world. It's my favorite, and we are gonna go to their boat to do a podcast together, and that is really cool because 4 years ago when Ryan and I had no clue how to sail, one of the first things that I did was to listen to Andy's podcast, and it's kind of crazy I will be in that podcast. So we're gonna go there right now. I'm gonna pack the camera because obviously I want to film this. Hopefully we can get some behind the scenes of how the podcast is made. So yeah. Oh my god, we're gonna be on the Wind! Nice. Okay, Andy, so how does it work?
Well, I've got to get my audio stuff set up. So we have a Zoom H6n that I plugged 4 mics into, and then we'll sit around the table and have our conversation.
Why doesn't it work? I don't understand.
Earth to Ryan.
We're not getting any audio. No audio. You're gonna need the mic tech. Mic tech.
All right, here you go. Plug that one in. All right, I'm gonna wanna sit, let's see. This is gonna be your like main camera, right?
Yeah.
So you and Ryan should probably be in that corner.
Yeah.
And I'll be here. We need to plug,
So you
I
can
need
put
to plug
that
my
camera here.
computer in.
The challenge that I have with this camera too is that it's broken. So sometimes it decides that it's just not gonna work.
Do you
Hopefully.
wanna use my camera?
No, it's gonna be.
My camera shuts the video off after 25 minutes, so.
This one does that too.
Okay,
Like
so
all
you have to-
DSLR.
Yeah.
So Mia, are you always kind of in the background or?
I'm
no?
usually in the background.
You're in the background.
Now I'll be sitting here. I'll be in the
Yes, yes. Please honor us with your presence.
check.
You're getting the Ryan in stereo.
There you go.
Ryan in Dolby surround sound.
Special for patrons.
Here, this is yours.
Mine.
Yep. Those two are for Ryan and Sophie. I want Sophie to have the black one. I
Okay.
want Ryan to have the other one.
I'll be near Mia.
Yes.
Okay, so we're rolling.
I'm not rolling, so don't clap yet.
No, but we're rolling on this one. And
Okay, the black. All right, guys. So, you're media professionals. The closer you talk into the mic, the better it's going to sound.
okay.
And try to remember that. Try to talk right into it. If you're turning your head and looking at somebody else, just
Yeah.
keep your face on the mic.
Tonight's a special night. Got the audience on.
Are we on?
No, it's not recording. So just wait.
I'm a little nervous. Okay.
And Dr. Big Brown.
Dr. Big Brown. So 5 is that's Ryan. Okay.
Silence your phone too.
6 is Mia. Okay. All right.
How did that? Oh, that's beautiful.
All right, we're rolling now, guys. We're gonna do a little sound check quick here first. So we'll go around the table. Ryan, what'd you have for breakfast today?
I had big dark chocolate croissant.
So you had chocolate for dessert and chocolate for breakfast.
I had a lot of chocolate,
Good
Andy.
man. Sophie, what did you have for breakfast?
Bonjour. I had croissant.
How do you say that again?
Croissant.
Croissant. All right. I'm gonna turn yours up a little bit. All right, Mia, what did you have for breakfast?
I had also a croissant. Someone came and delivered them for us.
Who was that?
Ryan and Sophie.
Uh-huh. And I had nothing for breakfast because we went running and I don't eat breakfast before we run.
Rock on, baby.
There you go. All right, stop for a second. Let me check that. This
Is your water, but I don't want to put it too close.
Thank you. All right, Sophie, do you want to do your little clapperoo thing?
Yes, let's clap. Wait,
All right, I think we got it.
we're good.
All right. Well, hey, a little friend there. I'm always nervous when I do these with my friends. This is always harder to do it with friends than with other people. But let's start. I guess, Sophie, do you want to start us off and describe the setting?
Yeah, so we are on Ice Bear, and 40 meters away from Ice Bear, if you pop your head out, there is Port Lucille, which is our boat.
Where are we?
We are in Les Saintes, which is a small archipelago south of Guadeloupe.
It's our favorite place in the whole Caribbean, too. How do you guys like it?
Oh, it's amazing. I could stay here my entire life.
We have 2 plans already, like 2 separate trip plans to come back here in
Oh,
the
really?
next month.
Well, the funny thing is, this is our second or third time.
Second time this year, but last year we were here at least
Yeah,
once.
So this is like the place if we have a break in the schedule
Yeah.
and we can get here, we come here and just hang out.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, we have to start this podcast. Like the origin story of your guys' sailing trip starts with an angry goose, and I just love this story. You've told it to me many times, but
Yeah.
you have to start the podcast off by telling the angry goose story.
Angry Goose story. Yeah. So Sophie and I had just started dating, and I was in heavy training for many things. I was going to go to Greenland to ski, and I was doing Stockholm Marathon training and blah, blah, blah. And I had gone back to the States to help my father with his open heart surgery, training for last big run before Stockholm Marathon. I was out on a trail. I came across a group of geese with babies, and one of them did not like me being there. And I don't know if you've been across a group of Canadian geese that are upset, but they like hiss like snakes, right?
Yeah,
And I had
yeah.
never heard that before. So I was like, something is wrong. So I tried to like go around them, and all of a sudden one just like took off at me, like coming for the eyes, right? Like big wings, coming right for me. And I turned around and ran like as fast as I could, which at that time was pretty fast. Slipped in the mud, put my arm out to catch me, dislocated my shoulder, was in more pain than I thought was humanly possible. And long story short, not only did I dislocate my shoulder, I broke the socket bone, and I had to go to the hospital in the U.S., get it reset, and then I had to fly back to Sweden to essentially get my shoulder rebuilt. And that like little episode was pretty.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Did the goose get you then when
No.
you fell flat on your face?
I don't know what happened to the goose. I was screaming so loud, like
The
I
goose
think they just
knew.
left. He was like, "My job's done here."
We got him, guys.
We got
Let's
him.
go.
Yeah. So goose, I don't know what happened to the goose. And I never run with a cell phone. I mean, Sophie like gets a little scared sometimes when I'm out, but and that day I happened to have one. So I called home, and my sister, who's a nurse, picked up, and I'm just on the phone. I think it's dislocated. I think she's like, "What is he talking about? He's just out for a run."
Oh God.
So flew back to Sweden. They told me they had to rebuild it, and it was going to be probably about a year worth of rehab. And so all of my plans, going to Nepal to climb a 8,000 meter mountain to going to Antarctica, everything was just gone. And in that process, I was essentially like, couldn't exercise at all, couldn't do anything. And I was just sitting around at work one day, like playing on the internet.
Had you met Sophie by this point?
Yeah, we'd only been dating for maybe a month.
We had met on Tinder 2 months prior to
Yeah.
the incident.
Okay.
So like pretty soon after, and I just read a story. It's another like YouTube sailing couple named Matt and Jessica, and they had an article on Board Panda, where I spent a lot of time at my old job, and there was this article about how they sold everything and sailed the world. So I was like, wow. Well, and ironically, on our second date, Sophie and I went running, and I told her while we were out running, I was like, someday I'm going to own a yacht. And I don't
And
think
I was like, who's that cocky guy?
of course, in my mind, a yacht was like, like Rising Sun, some massive super yacht, like.
Did you
motor-
actually aspire to that?
Like, well, then I did.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
That was
like-
a real thing.
Like,
That
I
wasn't just a
wanted to
joke.
have a big boat. Yeah, like a big motorboat.
I can't picture you like that.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
but I did not want a sailboat. I
Huh.
had no interest in sailing at all. And I read this couple, like, yeah, man, they like sailed the world. Like, you don't need fuel. You just need the wind, right? Of course, we use a lot of fuel. So, yeah, I just texted her. I was like, would you do this? And she's like, well, I'd do it for maybe a year. Try it. And so that kicked off the story. That started
Yeah.
the
the
process.
angry goose.
The angry goose.
So
And-
Sophie, you guys are unique because you're both like we met in Sweden, but neither of you were Swedish. Well, you were both Swedish, but not like by immigration. So
No.
how did you wind up in Stockholm?
Back in 2008, after the crisis, I was just about to graduate, and I worked in communications at that time. And there was no job for me in France, and I was lucky enough to find an internship in Stockholm. And I was working there, and I realized that in Sweden, working, you have this quality of life that you have nowhere else. And also being young and being a woman, you have a lot more possibilities to impact your career, your income, and your life. So yeah, essentially, I fell in love with the country, and I decided that France wasn't for me anymore at this point, and I really wanted to live in Sweden. So, yeah.
Why did you get citizenship though? Because like you could have just lived there as a European resident, right? Like, what was it that made you get citizenship? That's a pretty big step.
Yeah, so I moved to Sweden when I was 22, and that's where I spent most of my adult life. That's where I made my career, and I feel Swedish. This is my home. And for me, it was symbolic, but I knew that I was not going to spend my entire life in Sweden, but I also wanted to be able to go back.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happening now.
Yeah.
So we've left a year and a half ago, but being Swedish, having a Swedish boat because our boat is flagged Swedish, having the apartment, it's like, yeah, Sweden is home. We can go back.
What did you think when Ryan texted you with this sailing idea? Did you have any concept of what he was even talking about?
Yeah, totally. I think that a lot of time when we talk about our origin story, we talk about the goose, but we don't often talk about the fact that I was in the middle of rebuilding my own life as well. Yeah, so back 3 months before that incident, I had been badly dumped by a guy. And he threw me out of the house that we were living in. And it was terrible. I never heard from the guy again.
I forgot about this story.
So I had no place to go because I had rented the apartment that I owned, and I had tenants that were going to be there for 3 months, and that's why I went to Tinder. I was like, well, it wasn't a big loss, so let's see what's out there. And I met Ryan, and right when Ryan broke his shoulder, I was buying an apartment. I was moving. I mean, my life was in boxes, and I didn't really enjoy my job either.
What was your job?
I was selling HR systems.
Okay, what does that mean?
So, like when you work in the corporate world, you have annual assessments, you have leave of absences, like all these things that HR deal with. So I was selling a system for HR to do their work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I can picture you being probably pretty good at being a salesman, but I understand why you wouldn't like it.
Yeah, I felt like, I was putting people in the rat race. I
Into
was
what?
like in the rat race.
Oh, in the rat race.
I was like,
Yeah.
I was helping that system. It just didn't
Yeah.
feel like I was making society better or I was contributing in any way. So when Ryan sent me that text and I was in the middle of rebuilding my life and I didn't really like my job, I was like, yes, I will do this.
So you clearly were right off the bat were like, yeah, this is something I can
Yeah, and
I can get my head around.
at the same time, I was also conscious that I had met this dude 3 months before on Tinder.
Yeah.
And like, we had no idea who we were,
What
we were just dating.
What were you like? What was your job prior?
I was in the aviation world doing some consultancy stuff and some business development stuff. That's about as vague as I can be without getting really technical, but it was a technical aviation company selling some products and things. So I worked with
Leg is
airlines.
really in my way here. So you worked, I mean, we talked about this before when we talked about the risk management stuff, but you had actually been a pilot, right?
Right. Yeah. So, but it's been about 12 years probably since I've touched an airplane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was my background. So just the idea of it wasn't so intimidating for me. It was like, we're going to go get an airplane, but on the sea.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what was it like? I mean, I know you kind of got, maybe you can tell the story, but like you got sort of forced out of the military, I guess, because of like a ear thing.
Yeah, I was medically disqualified. I mean, that was my kid dream.
And
that's
you
where
and
I'm
I,
going with you and I have had discussions about like what I want to do in life,
Yeah.
and Sophie and I have too. And what I wanted to do in life was fly fast jets in the military.
Yeah.
And I got that. I lived my dream when I was 21 years old.
Did you actually get to fly fighter planes?
Yeah.
What were you flying?
I flew T-37s, T-38s, and I got a couple rides in the 16.
That's so freaking
So
cool.
it was cool. It was, and I got to live it even if it was for a short period.
Yeah.
And then I had this problem with my inner ears. It wasn't air sickness like a lot of people think. It was an issue with popping my ears or relieving the pressure. And so then after that, I was like, well, what do you do? What am I going to do with my life?
Mm-hmm.
And I got into more business development work and consultancy work. And it was fun. I got to travel the world, and that's what ultimately brought me to Sweden. And if that wouldn't have happened, I would still be in Iowa, which is fine.
Yeah.
But my life would look a lot different.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So, yeah, that was my dream. And after that, I still don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Running around in a boat. I don't like. It's just really hard for me,
Do you still like wish that could have happened? Like, is it any, or have you been able to move beyond that yet, or you still have days where you wish you could have done it?
No, there's days like I definitely wake up and I like run the whole sequence of events like through my head, like what happened over a 1 year period, and the day that I was told like, listen, you got to go. It was hard. That was hard. Like, and it sucks even more. You're running through the squadron building, crying next to like a bunch of like big tough military guys.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was tough, but in the end, it's the path that I have right now.
Yeah.
And I kind of have this belief in the universe. Universe has got a bit of a plan for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just rolling with it, and here we are. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a similar story I've talked about. It didn't affect me the same way because I've managed to carve out my own thing. It's a little different with you can't just say I'm going to buy my own F-16 and go be a pilot. But I'm colorblind, and I have a restriction on my license, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't get hired by somebody else.
Right.
So what we do is what I've always wanted to do as well.
Yeah.
But it happened, I guess, sooner maybe than it would have otherwise because we were like, well, me and I wanted to get a job on a super yacht. You're dying, aren't you? Look at you. You're so sweaty.
So I'm sweaty too. It's hot on this boat.
Terrible. Woo! Terrible. Can't turn the fans on because of the audio. Yeah. But anyway, I just said, all right, fuck it. I'm going to do this on my own. And you didn't have that option. So I can't imagine actually how that must have been for you to not be able to follow that.
Yeah, it was tough, and words can't describe it, you know? I mean, but part of me, it was stressful, and you and I have had a lot of discussions about stress and anxiety, and, like, you want to be perfect. I'm the kind of guy that everything needs to be perfect, and the military, it needs to be perfect.
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, my stress level was like above it, and there's no escape, and it's kind of like that on the boat, right? There's no escape.
We're still dealing with it.
Yeah. So part of me was like, there was a part of me that was like, okay, that's over. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but there was a bigger part of me that was really quite sad by the whole thing. But
but is there a part of you now that's like you can create your own future now? It's not like the military of all things is like you're such a cog in the machine. You have no say over really anything.
I think the biggest thing for me was if I would have stayed in the U.S., I don't think I would have gotten out of the rut, the work rut of you need to work to make money, to pay your mortgage, to follow the path, right? And having the opportunity to go live overseas and travel overseas, you really like your mind opens up to a lot of other possibilities. And I think that is the thing that's really changed my life because like you learn, okay, it's not about work. It's about something, it's about whatever you want it to be about.
Yeah.
And I don't think my mind would have like realized that if this whole process wouldn't have happened. So
you guys, Sophie, I'll ask you, you guys are sort of like much more common in the fact that like you had normal jobs and you left everything to get a boat because you had this dream. But I guess a two-part question, like why did you decide, a lot of people have ideas like this, but few people act on them. So why do you think you actually acted on them? And then follow up to that is what was the first thing that you did in order to put this whole thing in motion?
Yeah. So I think that, when people have big goals, they see the big goals. And what we did with Ryan was to really divide it in like really small steps, really concrete steps, knowing that we had met each other like so soon before. So we started by being like, all right, well, let's go to a boat show and look at boats. So we went there and we looked at boats. By that time, we had been dating for 6 months. Then we traveled together. Then we booked a sailing course. And by this time, we had been dating for like a year and we had moved in together. Then we decided that we were going to buy the boat, at which point I decided to sell my apartment and move in yours. And then you quit your job. A year later, I quit my job. And eventually, little by little, here we are. But we never started 3 months after we met on Tinder by, in 4 years, we're going to cross the Atlantic. It was more, like small steps. Does that feel good? Okay, we continue. What's the next step?
Had you been sailing at all before?
Yes and no.
Because you come from like a very sail-happy part of France, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I come from Brittany, and I come from where some really big names in sailing come from. So Éric Tabarly lived like a few kilometers away from my house. Kersozon, Florence Artaud. And I grew up watching TV every Friday night. This the longest running show in French TV. It's called Thalassan. It's all about the sea, and there's a lot of sailing involved. But funny enough, I had never really sailed. I think that when I was in my 20s, when I would go back to my hometown, I would try to sail hobbycats. And that was it. I would take my friends to my hometown and be like, okay, Mom, like I want to try hobbycats this time.
That's cool.
But that's the extent of my sailing experience, which is funny because when we were looking for sailing school, you were like, okay, so Ryan, I have no sailing experience, but my girlfriend has a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I've been on a hobby cat literally 3 times.
You had
Thank
way
you.
more than that's 3 times more than me.
So you had never set foot on a sailboat?
Never.
Really?
No.
And I guess there's not really any sailing culture in
No,
Iowa.
there's like 2 lakes in Iowa that one has a boat on it or something. I'd driven jet skis,
We offered your mom a sailing course on Sailorville.
Yeah, we did.
In Iowa.
We did. And we
They have a
we
small
still don't have it
Catalina.
set up.
Yeah.
We still don't have it set up for her. But yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on what Sophie said, like you mentioned all these steps, but like every step was actually a big discussion. So we need to get to know each other more. I had to get my shoulder like fixed up. We went to a boat show. Then we like had to decide, well, how are we going to learn like English? It's funny because it's like, what are we going to learn to sail in? Is it English? Is it Swedish? Is it French? Well, we only had one option really.
Ryan does not really speak French or Swedish.
But no, I mean, and then,
you
like,
speak Swedish though, right?
Yeah, I do.
I'm French, yeah. And then like moving in together, we moved in together because we couldn't afford to have 2 houses. So do we move into her place? Do we move into my place? We started with her place, and then we realized like, well, financially, we got to move back to my place. So it's like there were a lot of decisions that were constantly going, and it was all wrapped around the end goal, which was to get a boat and go off.
And meanwhile, while this is all happening, like, what are you, before you went to the sailing school, like, what are you consuming to like inspire yourselves and also learn what you're about to get into?
YouTube.
What were you watching?
We were watching Delos and Uma. At that time, we were watching La Vagabonde.
La Vagabonde had just come out. Like, La Vagabonde was like the thing, and they had just done their Atlantic crossing, and I'd watched a bit of that just like inspire me.
But I think that our YouTube phase lasted literally 2 months. That's it. Then we bought a lot of books. So we bought so many books.
Educational or inspirational or both?
So, like what book do you buy when you don't know how to sail? You're going to buy Sailing for Dummies.
Did you actually buy that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Of course. It was amazing because I opened that book and I didn't understand anything. And I think that to this day, I would open the book, I would understand. But like by the time we received the book, I was so excited about it because we really wanted to be prepared for our sailing course that was going to happen in 4 months. I could not understand anything. It was bad.
How did you find a sailing school?
The thing was we wanted to like keep this process going, right? So we were like, well, we got this idea in the summer of
2015.
15, and that's when my shoulder was getting repaired, and I knew I needed at least 6 months before I could use it again. So I put us at the winter, and then we're like, well, we want to buy a boat in the spring so we can start off sailing.
Yeah. Obviously, there is not much sailing in the winter in Stockholm.
Yeah.
So, that's when we started looking south, like Mediterranean. And we found a school in Gibraltar that could teach us in English with RYA curriculum. And they had really good reviews. And so we just did an internet search. And
they were former cruisers. So we sent a bunch of emails to a bunch of schools explaining our project and be like, okay, we want the experience to be as close as possible to what it is that we want to do.
Which is actually cruising.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we want to be just Ryan and I on the boat. We want to have the instructor with us for 2 weeks. We want it to be really intense because we want to know what it feels.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. That's a long time.
We want to know what it feels to be tired, and we want to know if we're going to kill each other on the boat. That was a true requirement.
And that's why it was great in the winter, because that's not their peak season.
Okay.
So they're like, well, we don't have anybody these 2 weeks, so that'd be great. So it can just be you two. We'll charge you the same amount. And so it was a great opportunity because it was just Sophie and I. And then I think on the weekend between the 2 weeks, we went back, and so our instructor had the weekend off.
Yeah.
And then we did some coursework and stuff. And it was just Sophie and I on the boat. So we had the boat to ourselves.
Okay.
And we could just
so you didn't have to like leave. You were still on the boat.
Yeah, we
but
could
the
stay on the
instructor just
boat.
went.
And and he went, and so we could kind of get a feel for.
You have to talk into the mic if you want to be
That's
on
true.
here.
So it was cool. We could just get a feel for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did it feel like? Do you remember what that first weekend alone felt like?
My goodness.
You should talk about the first day.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the first day we arrive, it's not the first day, it's the first night. And I think that on the first night, I woke up in the middle of the night and I fell asleep again. I was a little nervous, like it's your first night on a boat. It's like, oh. And I wake up in the morning and my eye hurts. It hurts so bad. And I look at Ryan, I'm like, Ryan, my eye hurts. Like, what does it look like? It's like, no, it's fine. It looks good. And I go to the bathroom and my eye is like black. And I think that what had happened was that I was like nervous or something. I had a nightmare and I stood up and I hit my head against the ceiling. And for the rest of the 2 weeks, I went around Gibraltar and the boat with a huge black eye. And people were looking at Ryan so funny.
Yeah, way to go, Mr. Ryan.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was getting a reputation around there.
Damn.
And, like I hit my head. Like I think that the door of the top loading fridge fell on my head as I was trying to dig in there.
You set the fire alarm off the first morning.
When I was trying to do toast.
Yeah.
I have a bad habit of like overfilling my cup of coffee, like maxing out the cup of coffee. Then a wave came and like coffee went everywhere. It was whoo.
So you learned pretty quickly that like it's different than an apartment. You have to put stuff in the sink or hold it.
Yeah, things get really fast.
Yeah. What did it feel like for you?
Yeah, like same thing. Like it was like a big learning thing right away.
Yeah.
I think I walked away from that. I knew I learned a lot. Obviously, we had a good instructor, but I walked away like, I mean, I want to do this. Like, it'd be cool, but it wasn't like I could tell because I'm such an adventurous guy that it wasn't going to fulfill my like physical need. You know, like getting the heart rate up. And it does sometimes, but those aren't like the good times.
Not
you don't want
not
it,
for
like,
for the mental reasons, not the physical reasons.
Right. Yeah. But I think at the end of that trip, you know, it was a good experience. We had really good weather, which.
I don't know how we did that.
I don't know how we did that either. 2 weeks in the Med in January.
Yeah.
And we had like, the winds were like 10, 12 knots.
Yeah.
In the Strait of Gibraltar, where it's always windy.
Yeah.
Where
and you guys learned that the real way now, having just left there.
Yeah, exactly. So I have no idea. We just were like blessed with great weather because we crossed the straits 4 times during those 2 weeks. And
wow.
I mean, for us, it was a great experience just because we got to learn in really high traffic areas. We got to learn with a little bit of tides and like some currents and stuff.
And we cruised. We went to Morocco. We went to Spain.
Oh, wow, cool.
We went around. It was just like so hard not to fall in love with that.
Yeah. What kind of boat were you on?
It was a Jeannot Sun Odyssey 36.
Okay.
Which was,
It was just 3 of you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. So, all right, after that, you get a taste of it. Like, I mean, there's one thing going to sailing school. It's another thing making a commitment to buy a boat. So,
oh my God.
How did you guys like manage that? How did you find it? How did you pay for it? What was that process like?
Okay, so I love the hesitation tone in Ryan's voice when he talked about how he felt after the course. No, like Ryan was ready to buy a new boat during the course.
That is true.
He was on the phone with the broker, being like, oh my god, I think I'm going to do this. Eventually, someone else bought the boat before us, and it's a good thing.
Yeah.
We were going to buy a brand new Jeannot 37, I think.
Yep.
And I mean, the thing is, we knew nothing. Like literally, like I didn't even know where you buy boats.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know Yacht World.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were very set on buying a brand new boat because that's what we knew, because we had been to boat shows. Oh, I think the camera went.
Oh yeah, we're at the 25-minute mark. All right.
Woo-hoo. All right, we're
Time
gonna
out.
Stand by.
All right. What do I need to do? Just
the start step behind. Start step.
Huh?
Start step.
Where's that? Oh, here.
Yeah.
There
we go. And we're gonna clap again.
Is it on?
And I'm gonna clap another time.
Hold on. Uh-oh.
Okay. We're rolling.
Getting good at that camera work there, Ryan.
It only took 2 years.
I gotta reposition here because your fat leg is in the way. Me up. All right.
Okay, so we are ready to buy a brand new boat because that's all we know. And we had an Instagram account where people started to follow us. It was not a lot of people, but a couple of sailors contacted us, and they were like, oh guys, like the type of boat that you're looking for is the exact same type of boat that we bought. Let's talk. And so we Skyped with them, and they tipped us.
I didn't hear this story.
Yeah, they actually tipped us off on Polar Seal.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she was in Stockholm?
She was in Southampton.
Okay.
In the UK. So we didn't have. So yeah, as Sophie said, we were trying to buy a new boat that fell through, and then we realized pretty quick, like, oh, you can get a lot more for your money on the used market. So then we started looking used, and we had a few offers fall through, and then these guys tipped us off on Polar Seal, and the Polar Seal had an awesome broker involved on the selling side, and it just worked out. Of course, we still didn't know what we were like buying in reality, right?
Yeah.
We're buying a boat. It looked cool. It looked like it had the stuff we needed.
I can't imagine buying a boat having never sailed before. Like, I mean, that's crazy.
It's the best thing, honestly.
the best thing.
No, seriously, because you
No,
don't.
but how do you even know what to look for? Like,
You don't know.
No, you
know
don't.
what to
and
look
that's
for.
that's the thing. So, like now, it's totally different.
Yeah, I was gonna
I-
ask, like, would you have done anything differently? This is
I would've
probably a
done a
question
lot
for later, but what would you have done differently in just buying the boat? I guess knowing what you know now.
We would not have bought the boat the first year, I think.
I think, yeah, I agree with that. Like, I would try to get out and sail on other boats first.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. Like, sail some other boats, see how they are different, how they're same, like what works good, what doesn't work. Like for me, I'd rather have right now for doing ocean crossings and stuff like a center cockpit boat and not have that wide open transom in the back like we have. But that has benefits like right now. It's great to jump in
Climbing
the
in
water,
a
right?
dinghy,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. And the thing is, we bought the boat with the level of skills that we had back then, which was perfect for the type of sailing that we wanted to do. We didn't really buy a boat. We bought a house. Like, we looked at the boat like a house. It's like, oh, I want a big kitchen, and I want a shower space, and I want a nice bed.
Yeah.
And we have all that. And today, like, Polar Seal is our house more than a mean of transportation. And he's great. I love our boat.
Yeah, I had a thought and I just lost it.
What do you guys? I mean, Sophie, you mentioned this to me the other night that for you, it's less about the actual sailing and more about the traveling to different places. So what do you
Yes.
think that, like, can you explain that? And what do you think the divide, like, what's the divide? How much is it sailing versus
Yeah.
travel?
So don't get me wrong. I love sailing. I love the act of going from point A to point B. Because in sailing, there is always a challenge, and I love a good challenge. But that is not what keeps me going. What I really love about this life is the destination that we reach and the people that we meet. So I would say it's like 60% the destinations and the people, but like a solid 40% the sailing. Like, if we were not sailing now, I don't think that I would buy plane tickets to travel the way we do.
Yeah, well, that's different.
I would not do that.
What about for you, Ryan?
No, for me it's more about the sailing, I think. I mean, it's cool being in places like we are right now. That's great.
And the boat, you love making.
I like
with
working
the
on the boat.
Yeah.
I love making the boat better.
Yeah.
And that's not something I thought I would like. And there's days I hate it. I'm just swearing at the boat, you know, and you're sweating and throwing stuff, and it's not working with you. But when you get it done and it works, you're like, I did that.
It
It's
is
so
cool. Yeah, I know.
And it's given me so much confidence in normal like life. So last year when we were back in Des Moines, where I'm from, my sister said, "Hey, my dryer's not working right. Like, could you just come look at it?" I don't know anything about. I rebuilt her entire dryer. Like, took the whole thing apart and just bought the parts and rebuilt it. And she's like, "It's like brand new now. Like, it's so good." And it's just like working on a
You're
boat.
definitely the first person on the podcast that has said you learned about dryer maintenance by working on your boat.
I was
That's
so
awesome.
weird, right? Like,
That's awesome.
But it just gave me the confidence to say, "Well, let's take it apart. Let's let's see." So that's been cool. Yeah.
But you told me that you were getting bored on the TransAtlantic.
Oh, I was so bored. I was so bored. And that's part of like the physical piece of it. Like,
You
I need
think
to
it
be
was
doing
because you
something.
just were antsy. You couldn't.
Yeah, it's just
you
like
couldn't go for a run and stuff.
Yeah, I just needed to be doing something.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I can't take the boat apart to work on something when we're in the
fair.
middle of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Although we had to a couple times. So that's and I knew that was going to be a problem. Like, deep inside, like, I knew that this is going to be an issue for me. Yeah.
So fast forward a little bit, guys. You spent, what? How long were you in the Med for? Like a year or 6 months or?
We
A
did a
year.
season.
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah. So, and you can talk about that. I mean, you can see it all in your YouTube stuff. But I'm most curious about, like, it's one thing cruising around in the Med, and it's another thing, like, taking the leap to cross the Atlantic. And I guess we should go back. The first big leap you guys did was to cross Biscay, I guess, right?
Yeah, I
Coming
mean-
down from Stockholm.
Like, Yeah, like even before that, the North Sea was like quite something.
Yeah, I think we really had like 3 or 4 phases of this trip. And the
Yeah.
first was we got on a boat and left the Baltic
Mhm.
and went into the North Sea, which I was super stressed about because that was the first time we were like getting into like really truly tidal waters.
It
Yeah.
was so
Did you go
cool,
through the
though.
Kiel Canal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just go through the Kiel Canal, and now all of a sudden we're in the North Sea. There's big storms that come up, and we're in shallow waters, and there's ships everywhere.
Enormous ships.
Yeah, and we did quite a bit of night sailing there too. So it was really trial by fire. Like we threw ourselves in the middle of it right away, and like, well, we got to sail at night sometime. Let's do it.
And was it
And-
just the two of you?
Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole way.
It's been the two of us most of the time.
Mhm.
In those situations, Ryan, like where it's so crowded and shallow and all the traffic and everything, like did you fall back on your pilot skills? Did anything translate?
I think absolutely, yeah.
In what sense?
It was about. I think it was about thinking ahead.
Okay.
You know, like you should try to be like 5 steps ahead of what's
Mhm.
going on. So when there's so many ships, I think it's easier actually because your mind is just, okay, I got a guy there, now I got a guy there. Where'd this guy come from? You know, he's there, and you're looking at the lights, and you're just trying to plan everything out. And it makes the watches go so fast too because you're just constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden your 3 or 4 hours is up, and then we switch, and you get a brief on what's going on, and
And I can feel it a little bit because I have a little more perspective on you than you have. You no,
Okay.
you are like your background as a pilot makes you so good, and Ryan is always 10 steps ahead of me. Like from the beginning, you've always been so much ahead of me because you're a pilot. Like weather is your job, navigation is your job. Preparing a passage, that's what you do, and you are so good at it. You put so much thought into researching, and you know, and not only the passage, you know, but what skills are we going to need for that passage? And you've been doing that ever since we left Stockholm, and I'm amazed. I mean, I feel so safe with you. It's great.
Is it hard sometimes to rely on that dynamic though, where like it sounds like you're like Ryan knew more than you knew?
Oh my God. When we learned to sail, when we took our course, I was so frustrated because I was always behind. I didn't understand because like I'm a pretty hard worker, you know, like if I put my mind to something, I will do it. But Ryan you were so good. And it was so frustrating. I was like, how is it possible that I'm working so hard and he's still like 10 steps ahead of
I
me?
had to tell Sophie one night. I had to sit her down, and I was like, listen, I went to college
Yeah.
for this stuff. Like, I know about weather. I know how to read charts. It's because I did that for like 6 years. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way you're going to catch up to me in 2 weeks. So you just need to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me help you at night because like maybe our instructor didn't explain something in the way that she understood. So we would sit down and I'd go over again with her at night. And I think after you became comfortable with that,
Yeah.
things got a lot better. Like, okay, she just accepted that that's just how it
Yeah.
is. you
Yeah.
know?
Mia,
And-
I know you went through a little bit of that because you never sailed when we met. So how did you handle the discrepancy in knowledge like at first?
I mean, I think you just have to accept it at some point too, and realize that no, I'm never gonna exceed you. So I'm just gonna have to soak it in and kind of learn instead of trying to always be a step ahead.
Tell the story about your yacht master though.
What do you mean?
That was the first time you'd ever taken formal training?
You love this.
I love this story.
Yeah,
This
no,
is great.
No, it was great because it was the first time I took a formal training, and I realized that what Andy had taught me was actually what they teach in the yacht master. and not
Imagine.
in-
Yeah, okay.
I was like, man, that guy actually knows what he's talking about. He's not just talking.
Yeah.
And you love that.
Yeah, I do.
But there's a flip side to it too. Like, I don't care about food. I could just eat like microwave meals my whole
You
life.
eat to survive,
I eat
not to
survive.
enjoy, right?
And Sophie is.
And here you have a French girlfriend who really knows how to cook. Way to
She's
go,
a
Ryan.
really good cook, and I will never be a cook like her. So she's just that, you know.
Okay,
And
here's the difference though. You have no interest in becoming a cook like me.
That's
I
true.
do have an interest in becoming a really good sailor.
Mm-hmm.
So like you really inspired me when you took your yacht master. Like it's something that I really want to do. And okay, I have accepted that I will never be as good as you when it comes to navigation and weather, but it's also motivated me to really work. And one thing that I'm really proud of is that to this day, I still have more nautical miles under my keel than you.
that's
I
true.
also took the boat without you a couple of
That's
times.
true.
And Mia, you have
Yay.
more transatlantics than me still, but I'm gonna catch you this summer.
High five,
Very
Mia.
well.
Sweaty high five. My palms are like F.
So Sophie, I have to say too, when we shortly after we met, when we were both out at Tle, and you came in on Polar Seal in
Ute.
and like here you come in by yourself. Ryan's not here, and you had to stern anchor. Like, you had to go stern too with an anchor, and then bring the boat in, and you did it by yourself. And I was like, damn, who is this girl? Like, this is pretty impressive. Because I was like, that it was not an easy place to do that. It was really tight in there. You really impressed me with that little
thanks.
maneuver.
Oh,
and that was like 3 years ago.
You never said that. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think I even
wow.
commented to Mia. I was like, damn, that's pretty good.
Yeah. It all goes back to before we bought the boat. I mean, we had bought the boat and we needed all kind of gear. And I went to a boat show, Stockholm's boat show, without Ryan. Because we were on a business trip, and I needed to buy a whole bunch of stuff, and nobody would take me seriously because I was a woman and I was alone. And ever since that day, I make a point of being a skilled sailor, of trying to be as skilled as I can. And one of those skills is docking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to be able to dock my boat.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always been my goal: be a really good sailor.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, all right, back to the transatlantic stuff. When you guys, first of all, how did you make the decision that you were going to leave to cross Atlantic this year? Because I know you were back and forth a lot about that.
You want to talk about this, Ryan?
This is like a 3-part thing because you have to understand the plan when we originally left Stockholm. And we didn't want to make this our life originally. It was, we were going to do an Atlantic circuit 1 year, come back, and that's what it was going to be.
Okay.
Then we got this idea, well, let's try to make it more of a lifestyle. We'd quit our jobs, maybe just live on the boat for a while. So let's go to the Med first and experience that. So the plan changed a little bit, and we'll go into the Med until we decide we don't like the Med and we'll leave. So we went into the Med in 2019. So we came down, we left in 2018. Yeah. Left in 2018, got to the Med, wintered there, and then 2019 spring summer sailed.
Yeah, because you guys left right when we were heading up to the Arctic.
Exactly.
Because you sailed with us across to Orkney, Sophie, and then pretty much left like right after that, right?
Yep.
It was like the most stressful time for her to leave to go sailing with someone else.
What? Because you guys were like final stages of getting
we're
the
like
boat?
moving out of our apartment. We're trying to move onto a boat, and she's like, "Okay, see, I'm gonna go sailing with Andy and Mia."
We're selling the car.
So we sailed in the Med. We met all these people coming down the coast of Portugal, including you guys. And
that was so cool.
They all are turning right to go across the Atlantic, and we were one of the few boats turning left. So we did the Western Med this last year. So the Balearics, Corsica, Sardinia, Sicily, and Malta. And the hardest thing I had was that nothing was consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only consistent thing was inconsistency. So the winds were shifting. They're high, low, swell, high, low, swell shifting. And it was just so, like, we went to beautiful places and you couldn't stay there.
Yeah.
You could stay a day or two. And we've been here a week. It's been great.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted. Because we're also working from the boat too. So our work was getting behind because it was like every other day we needed to move. And I personally was just getting really tired of it. So I kind of wanted to go to the promised land, you know. And I think once we got to Sardinia, Sicily, I finally just admitted to Sophie, like, I don't want to be here.
I had to pull it out of you, though.
Yeah, you really had to pull it out of me because Sophie kept saying, well, I really want to go to Greece and Turkey, and I didn't want to disappoint Sophie, but I didn't want to stay. Like, I had no interest in staying. I wanted to go, even though everyone says you got to go to Greece. I'm sure Greece is great, but
we'll get there.
I just didn't want to. I didn't want to stay. And I wanted to get an ocean crossing under my belt.
Yeah, you were telling me that this morning on your run. I thought that was really interesting. That like the way you put it was, you're not sure how long you're going to do this, and if you stayed in the Med another year, you might miss out on the big Atlantic crossing. And was that to like satisfy your adventurer itch sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've done so much, like sailing the North Sea. I thought, and Biscay. Probably some of the hardest things we did, like the shallows off Dunkirk, for me was one of the most stressful times because we went through there at night at low tide with 25 knot winds, and
it was bad.
It was just scary.
Why was it scary?
Oh, because
there's not a lot of places to mess up, right?
Yeah.
There is no room to mess up. Also, we were downwind and our mainsail got stuck and the boat was really out of balance in shallow waters that were extremely wavy.
How shallow?
I was like probably 5 meters.
If we went outside the
Oh,
channel,
shit.
we would have
Like
we
we
would have
were-
grounded the boat.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That shallow?
Yeah, like the
Damn.
week
Yeah.
week before we crossed, some people got stuck on sand and had to be rescued.
Damn.
It's challenging through there.
Yeah.
Right? So, like for me, it's like, okay, we did that. We've done Biscay. Now we've gone in these wonky winds in the Med. Like, it's downwind sailing. Like everyone says, it's easy, right? So let's
Yeah.
just do it. Let's make. Why are we making life so hard on ourselves here in the
So
Med?
easy.
So let's go do it, right?
So easy.
That was how I. And Sophie said, well, if that's what you want to do, let's do it. So, and we decided Malta was as far as we'd go, and then we did our first long passage from Malta back to Spain.
What was that, like 900 miles or something?
900
Yeah.
miles. Yeah.
Did you guys feel ready at that point after having cruised around to do a big passage like that?
Yeah, I think that so all the way down from Stockholm to the Mediterranean, we would always go 2 days or 3 days passage, and I think we like that. We're that type of people. We like to like do long passages and stay in a place for a while. I really like that part of sailing. I like a long passage because it's the challenge.
I didn't even think about. I mean, we had a crew member come on board, and I didn't even think about it. It was like, well, let's pack up, let's go.
Yeah.
And we did it because
Yeah.
it was one of the reasons we did it that way as our first really long passage was because even though the closest land was North Africa and maybe not the best place to go, there's somewhere to go.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's close to a shipping lane. Like I felt just really safe and secure in that environment. Like if something really goes wrong, there's a lot of stuff.
There's an
around.
out, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought like if you're gonna do a long passage, this is it.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And given all the bad weather that we had in the Med, like high winds, low winds, wonky winds,
No wind.
we had a beautiful sail for
yeah.
7 days. Like beam reach almost the whole way, sailing like 7 knots. It was crazy, you know, like this whole year, and we just beautiful sail. Caught a few
That's cool.
fish. It was
You earned
great.
it.
Yeah,
It was great. It was
yeah.
great.
and it gave us a lot of confidence then to take, and then on top of it, it was a good shakedown.
Yeah.
So we learned what was working, what wasn't. We learned with Sophie getting hurt with her burn that we needed a better med kit. We needed to. There's just like a lot of things it allowed us to think through before we took the next
Yeah.
big step in going offshore.
It's interesting because for the podcast I did this morning, for my other show, I kind of reflected on our first transatlantic, which was our Arcturus in 2011. And I felt the same way because we left the Chesapeake, sailed up to Newport, then Nova Scotia, then St. Pierre, and it was all like long trips but coastal. So you always had an out. And then I read this journal that I wrote this morning. Did you listen to that episode yet, by the way? So you haven't heard this, but the journal that I read from was from the 7th day of the crossing. And I wrote how for that first week I couldn't shake this feeling of like exposure because it was the first time we'd really sailed off like the deep end in our own boat. For some reason it felt different than it was. Like we had done some deliveries and stuff on big passages, never across the Atlantic, but that I wrote that like that feeling of exposure was like really making me anxious and like not being, and it eventually went away. And I guess where I'm going with this is, did you guys get that same sense when you finally departed to go across the Atlantic? And maybe, and if so, when?
That's funny. No, because the first week it was just Ryan and I on board, and the first week we were so tired. The sea state was a little bit wonky, and I was just too tired to feel anything.
I mean, maybe just back up a bit. We went from Gibraltar to the Canaries.
Yeah, that's
with
right.
Crew.
Yeah. But even so, that's sort of down the coast of Africa.
It
right?
was,
Yeah.
and that was probably our most exciting sail we've ever had. And then we did to Cape Verde with Crew, and then we departed, just Sophie and I, from Cape Verde.
Yeah, and I would say like that to me would feel like off the deep end, because even Canaries to Cape Verde, you're still kind of paralleling
Yeah.
the coast.
I definitely, like, after 2 days, I felt exposed.
Really?
I did feel exposed, and that's when we always joked flying, right? Like as soon as you do water, like you're flying over water and you go away like from your glide range back to land, the engine sounds different.
Oh,
So
really?
it's like the engine's like, what's going on with the engine? It doesn't sound any different, but in your mind, like
Yeah.
everything is sounding
Oh, wow.
different, right? And so for me, everything in the boat started sounding different. It's
Huh.
like the autopilot would make a sound. Because for me, my biggest fear is we lost that autopilot.
Yeah, because it's just
Because
the two
it's
of you.
just the two of us,
Yep.
and if we lost that, like we could do it, but that whole journey was gonna suck. And so my mind was just constantly like, okay, gotta be thinking about this, gotta be thinking about that. What happens if this goes down, And I had done as much preparing as we could have possibly done without dragging a second boat behind us. But I felt exposed. I really felt exposed.
Did it ever go away?
I think it just settled, like, okay, we're in this now. And every day as we got closer, it was a day that if something went wrong, it was just one less day that we'd have to power through it, right?
Yeah, and then on that trip too, it's not like you're going back because then you're beating against trade winds.
You
Like
can't go
you
back.
really.
And once you
really
get
go
about
back.
a day out, that option kind of goes away unless it's something really crazy. I
But
think.
you didn't feel that way, Sophie.
No,
Was it? Okay, why?
because honestly, Ryan and I were so prepared. We had gone through everything. We even asked ourselves the question, what do we do if one of us dies?
Yeah.
Which is really morbid, but we really had thought about everything we could think about. And at this point I was like, if there is something that we haven't thought about, then what more could we possibly have done? And then that you're not going to do it every year. So I was trying to enjoy it as much as I could.
Yeah. Did you feel that way on our first trip, Mia?
I don't remember, but I don't think so because you were ultimately responsible, and I think there's a big difference too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm more even than you
Well,
are
that
in
for
the
sure.
emotions
For
in
sure.
general. So
Yeah.
I think that's
I
probably
do
the
think
case.
there is something. There is a big difference when it comes to who has the responsibility.
Yeah.
So I sailed with you guys just the other day,
Mm.
and whatever.
You were just along for the
I
ride.
was along for a ride. Andy's in charge.
Yeah.
And it just takes like a whole level off of it. But for Sophie and I was the guy in charge, and we're a team. But it was still. I feel like it's all on me. And if something happens to Sophie or something happens to the boat, it's on me. And that just that's a lot of responsibility.
How does that play out in like flying when you're like in a 2-seater plane? How does that work?
Like so aviation, as we talked I think in the other podcast, it kind of created this whole world of crew resource management stuff. And initially, there's a reason you have a captain and a co-pilot, and those roles are clearly defined nowadays. So the captain's in charge of this and he makes the decision, but the first officer's there and can provide some feedback and input, and the captain should listen, but ultimately the captain's responsible. And that's how it is on a boat too, but it's very clearly defined, I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
but
I guess the feeling. Do you still get those same feelings if you're not the captain in an airplane? Like, is it the same feeling of responsibility?
I think
as you
it
described on the
is,
boat?
but when you're flying airplanes, it's just like it's like driving a bus most of the time. It's
Yeah.
when stuff goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were to do TransAtlantic a couple times a year and just get them under my belt, after a while it's gonna be like driving the bus across the ocean, right?
yeah.
This was our first time, so I was stressed. Just like if I was the captain for the first time on a big plane, I'd be stressed. But then once you get used to it, it's fine. It's when the stuff goes wrong, then that your training takes over then. But
What's how are we on time on those cameras? I think we're getting close to 25 minutes
That's
again.
a good point. I don't have my glasses, so I don't see anything. Yeah, we need to restart.
It says 20.
restart. So what do I have to do here?
You just
Hey,
press start stop.
24:43. That's pretty
You're
good.
good.
What do I do? Start stop. All right, cool. So back in action here. Well, you were saying, Ryan, how like you were worried about the autopilot crapping out, and then it did crap out.
Yeah, like that's very true. Middle of the night, we just done a shift change too. So Sophie and I were doing. People always gasp when we say this, but we were doing 6-hour watches.
Yeah.
Just because we could get in a rhythm and we had no traffic, so we had a system for how we would do things. So we switched at 2 a.m. every day, and I came on, and Sophie just like gone to bed, and everything, all the lights in the cockpit out, autopilot's off, and I was like, my first thought was we've lost the whole ship's power.
Yeah.
And so I yelled, "Hey Sophie!" I yelled down, and she flipped a light on, and so it's instantly I'm like, "Okay, we have power, like that's good." And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "You got to come up here." So she crawls up on deck, like, "You got to."
And you had just gone to bed, hadn't you?
I had literally just pulled the cover over myself.
When
And
was this in the crossing? Was it in the
Yeah, how many days in?
13, I think.
Nah, it was
like-
a little more than halfway.
Okay.
I think, yeah. So yeah, like then I realized, okay, it's just the navs. We've lost our navs, including the autopilot.
Which is still not great.
Yeah.
Still not great, but we had the compass. So I was like, just steer on this compass heading. That's about where we were. And I think I troubleshooted it in about 15 minutes. I knew what the problem was.
Yeah, you were extremely efficient. Although from the helm, where I was hand steering in my PJ, it felt like an eternity.
Yeah. So I think I troubleshooted in about 15 minutes, and then it took me probably another hour and a half to like rig up my solution for it, because I was kind of going back and forth on how I wanted to do it. But we rigged up the solution. It's still in place. I actually haven't fixed it yet.
What was the problem?
Yeah, it was just a bad relay.
So what did you do? Just bypass that?
I bypassed the relay, yeah. And I knew that I was having problems with this relay before. Like sometimes I'd pull it out and put it back in.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 years ago, I didn't even know what a relay was, right? So
what is a relay anyway?
it's just, it allows you to use a smaller switch to turn on like a bigger current. So
Okay.
you have like a bigger power line, and you want to use a small switch to flip that on.
Yeah, I
Use a
didn't.
relay.
I didn't know that before it crapped out either.
It was just really hot. This relay was, and
Yeah.
so I think it was a bad connection in there that was not my fault.
And you guys had installed those lithium batteries too, which sort of was a test. And I mean, how much of that was running in the back of your mind? Like, shit, maybe something.
Well,
wrong
when
with that?
when I thought we lost all the power,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, crap, like the battery's gone
Yeah.
down. And then I realized that's not the case. So when I found it was a bad relay, the stress was gone. It was
Yeah.
just, I need to fix this now.
Yeah.
So
Well, we could spend hours talking about technical stuff. I wanna. We're almost at an hour here already. This is
Yeah.
going fast. This is great. But my favorite part of ocean passages is like making landfall, not because the sailing's over, but just for that kind of feeling. And I think you guys made landfall in Martinique on New Year's Day, right?
We did.
What did that feel like?
We really wanted to arrive for New Year's Eve. Like,
Yeah.
we wanted to celebrate the New Year at destination. So landfall started at midnight already, when we started seeing boats pop up on the EIS, and we're like, "Oh, Happy New Year!" And then I danced on the dock. I literally danced on the dock. I did. It was amazing. And then before I could even see land in the boat, the smell was different.
Mm-hmm.
It was very humid outside, and everything started to look so different, and it was hard to fathom. It was and it took me like a good week before I was like, my God, we have crossed the Atlantic.
Yeah, I was
We
just
have
gonna ask
crossed
you,
an
like,
ocean.
when did it sink in?
A week.
Yeah.
Yeah, like after a week. When we left Le Marin, we had booked a week at the marina after we were going to make landfall, just to rest up and take care of the boat. And then once we left the marina, I was like, oh my goodness, we are here. This is nuts. What have we done?
So Ryan, does having that crossing now under your belt, has it scratched that itch, or do you want to do more now?
like the crossing was boring. It was boring. It really was. Like downwind sailing across an ocean is pretty boring unless a bunch of stuff is happening.
Yeah.
And you don't want to have
Right.
that happen anyway.
Boring is a good thing in that context.
Yeah. So it was cool. It's cool to look on a map and see our track
Mhm.
with the tracker and say, wow, like we have really come a long ways. So that piece is cool. I don't know. Like, what's the next thing then? Because that's okay. Great, you've done it.
Mhm.
Now,
Panama.
now what do you do? Huh?
The Pacific.
The Pacific, yeah.
Circumnavigation.
I don't know. Like, it's maybe shorter sails between places is like the more fun thing. And
Well, did you get a sense of like listlessness after having done that, like trying to figure out the next thing, or are you just
no, I think
enjoying
we're
it, or-
soaking up
Yeah.
the Caribbean right now because it
Yeah.
is really nice here.
Yeah.
So I don't feel that way. I'm glad we're here, and there's
Yeah.
just so much to see and do. And we made a promise to ourselves. We pushed so hard from when we left Stockholm to when we essentially got to
Arrived
Cape.
here.
Yeah, essentially arrived here for the last like year and a half. That we made a promise to ourselves that we were going to slow down.
Mhm.
Like we're going to slow down. We're not on a timetable. We're not going to let anyone dictate where we're going. Although we've done a little bit of that, but
yes.
it's going to be about us. And we spent a week here now with you guys, which has been fantastic. And we're just soaking that up, and I think that's great. Yeah.
That's good. I mean, I think I have a hard time after accomplishing, like when we got back from Svalbard, I was like, shit, now what am I going to do? Like, because you're so goal driven
Yeah.
that when you meet those goals, it's hard to like, all right, because you don't ever, at least for me, I never allowed myself to think like what it would be like to actually have accomplished some of these major goals.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
don't like, you get to it and it's like, uh-oh. I didn't think this would ever. You never allow yourself to think that it would ever actually happen. And then
Absolutely.
you feel stuck.
Yeah.
But that's good. So that's good that you don't feel that way. I think
No,
that's a win.
I'm just soaking up where we are now.
Yeah.
And we've had some discussions about like, well, what do we do after the season? What's next? And there's some question marks associated with that. And we just see. Part of it's also learning how to live in this life too, which we're still working that out. We're still trying to figure out what works for us.
Well, I know you're not really a planner, and you kind of are, Sophie. So how
Yeah.
do you guys reconcile that with each other?
We don't. No, it's challenging, definitely, because I like to know where I go. I'm like you. I want a goal. And I felt the same way you did after Svalbard. When we crossed the Atlantic, I was like, man, I feel lost. What's the next thing? What is it that I'm working for? What am I doing?
Yeah.
So yeah, we've had a lot of discussions about that. We have planned to have more discussions about that. But yeah.
Well, Mia, you had a really good advice for me, if you want to share that.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
About like looking for the next thing.
Yeah, it's like you just wait for it to come because it came before. It's gonna come again. So instead of
Don't
letting it force it to come, you just wait for it and it will come.
Yeah.
I've lived by that
Yeah.
kind of philosophy a lot in my life. It's the same thing how this project came up.
Yeah.
It came because of a goose,
An
So,
angry goose. We've
yeah.
come full circle now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really warm, and I know Mia is too, and I think we just lost one of your cameras, Sophie. So do you guys have anything, like, we didn't talk anything about your YouTube stuff, but I think people can find that on their own, and I'll talk about it at the beginning. I am curious. We had a very fun discussion last night at dinner about where the direction of your YouTube thing's going and how that's working. We don't need to rehash that now, but
It made me thought. It was good. I'm happy we had that discussion. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely something that I want to continue doing. It's like such a big part of our lives right now.
Yeah.
Definitely a huge part of my life. I just love doing it so much, and it was good to have someone to bounce ideas with. You know, it was
Who's
it was
not
great.
named Ryan?
Who's not my boyfriend, and who also has been in the business for a while. So that was awesome.
Well, is there anything else? I always kind of ask, is there anything I didn't ask you guys that you want to talk about here before we wrap this up?
I don't know. I mean, I just think that if people are inspired to do this stuff and they got a dream, like just start out and like take it a bit at a time and go do it. You know, there's nothing special about it. You know.
Yeah. In the
So-
end, big life changes are just a succession of small steps that you have to take anyways.
Yeah.
So just like look at the small steps.
That's really cool. I've changed the way I finish this now. I like to ask people to name one thing that you're thankful for and something that you're looking forward to, and that's how we'll wrap this up.
Do you know, Sophie? I might
Yeah.
have to think about that for a
I've
minute.
thought I've thought about it a lot because sometimes boat life can be really, really gruesome, really difficult. Like an hour ago, I found bugs in my food. I was not happy. And sometimes, you have to like take a step back and realize how privileged we are to live this life. You know, we have a beautiful boat, we have amazing friends, we get to see places that most people will not see in the course of their lifetime. And I'm just so grateful for life in general. I'm grateful for you, honey. You're a
Aw.
great partner.
Thanks, baby.
I'm grateful for you too, Ryan.
Oh, Andy,
Me too.
I love those morning cuddles.
Oh boy.
Oh my
No,
goodness.
I'm
We were running this morning, Ryan. Come on.
yeah, running to the trash hill. No, I mean, obviously I'm thankful for Sophie, but as I think you kind of alluded to there, I'm thankful for the really the strong friends that we have while we're out here, because this life is, even though all our friends back home look at Instagram, they're like, oh, you have such a great life, you know, why are you complaining? Like, it's hard not having people around all the time. So just like with you guys being here, I mean, having really close friends that we can talk to and understand, like, the life's great, but it's also got some really big challenges with it, and I'm really thankful for that. I think what I'm looking forward to is just what's around the corner. I think that's one of the exciting things in life, and one of the reasons I don't always plan or like to be planned, because I never know. And I'm the oldest person sitting at the table. Like,
So
old that I just learned that you can't always plan it, and it's super exciting because I don't know what's around the corner.
I'm like you.
I'm excited to find out what's coming,
Yeah.
and it might be crappy, but it might be really cool.
Yeah.
And so that's the fun part. And maybe we're not on a boat in a year. Maybe we're, I don't know, taking the shuttle to space. Who knows? So
What are you looking forward to, Sophie?
I'm looking forward to finding out what the next big thing is because I really like to plan life.
That's good. Mia, you're not getting off the hook here. What are you thankful for? What are you looking forward to?
Man.
I bet I know what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to
I'm
the same thing
looking forward
here.
to getting my cast off my leg.
Yeah, really.
In the immediate future. But I'm thankful that, I think a few days ago I hurt my leg and I ended up in a cast. And I think by doing that stuff, it makes you take a step back and realize, like, holy crap, this is great. And what a support network we have. Like, all of a sudden, like, you guys coming over with croissants in the morning and dropping off the laundry. And I think the cruising community is something truly to be thankful for. Everyone is just stepping up and helping each other when it's needed and when it's wanted. So I think that's something to be thankful for. And yeah, I'm looking forward to get this cast off and my foot to heal.
Yeah, and swimming again.
Yeah. How about you, Andy?
I'm thankful we met the Team Whitmer family the other day. They were awesome.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed sailing with them when you hurt your leg. But they were really cool. I'm very thankful we got to meet them. And I have to admit, I am really looking forward to getting off the boat. I'm ready to go home to the farm for a little while and sit by the fireplace. That's what I'm looking forward to. Well, this has been great, guys. It's been awesome hanging out, and this has been a really fun podcast. I mean, our hour went by like that.
Bam.
So
Well, thanks for
guys.
having us on, Andy.
Yeah, man.
Yes,
I
It's been a
know
long
for
time.
Sophie, it's a big thing because she's been listening to your podcast for a really long time. So to be on the podcast, I think she's super stoked.
You did great, Sophie.
Thank you. I was nervous.
Cool. We're done. You did it. Good job.
Yay!
Oh, man. I'm so glad we did this, like, in the wild. I was telling Ryan that this morning, like, not in Stockholm or not. And after you guys did your crossing, like, yeah, this is perfect.
This is awesome.
In a remote place.
All right.